What's up, everybody? I'm Tim from Tim Ridge Gifts. We're going to attempt to answer a debate that goes on far too often in candle making. That is whether or not you can use crayons to color your candles. Now, if you ask most candle makers, they will tell you no. Problem is, if you were to check YouTube and look for DIY candles, about 90% of them are going to tell you to use crayons. So with so many different opinions, it's hard to determine what the answer is. Now, if you ask me, the short answer is no. But that wouldn't make much of a video, so I'm going to go ahead and dig into it. And I'm going to actually show you guys why it's such a bad idea to use crayons to color your candles. So first, let's talk about what we've got. Just a simple Crayola crayon, the same thing that has been around since we were all kids. What's in it? Now, if you ask Crayola, you check their website, they're going to tell you that it's paraffin wax and color pigment. Kind of. Obviously, they're not going to give us their entire formula. But if you go online and check their patent, you'll see that it actually contains paraffin wax, stearic acid, polyethylene glycol, and color pigment. Most of that should sound familiar. Most of that's what's found in regular candles. My guess is that's what makes people think that you can actually put it in a candle. The problem comes with the color pigment. It's not water or oil soluble. Makes for a great crayon, makes for a horrible candle. You'll see that later on in the video. So for this test, what we're going to do is we're going to make 12 different votive candles, each with varying levels of crayons in them. To show you the difference, to show you the color fail, then we're going to light them. We're going to show you that they're just not going to work at all. The way we're going to do that is for each votive we're going to make, we've got 1 pound of wax. We're going to add 1 crayon to the pound of wax for each votive. So the first votive is going to have 1 crayon per pound. Second votive is going to have 2 crayons per pound. 3 crayons per pound, 4 crayons per pound, all the way up to our 12th votive. Then maybe for fun, we'll make one completely out of crayons. So let's go over our supplies real quick. We're going to be using a Parasoy blend from Rustic Essentials, Crayola crayons, of course, votive cups, and votive wicks. Alright, so let's go ahead and get mixing and let's make some candles. Okay, so that's melted down. We're ready to pour our first votive. And now we're going to add back our 2 ounces of wax that we just poured out so that our ratio stays the same. We're going to go ahead and add our next crayon. So now our ratio is 2 crayons per pound of wax. Okay, so we've got our votives poured. Now we just got to wait and let those cool before we can move on to the next step. Okay, so we've got our 12 votives made using different amounts of crayons. So let's go over the reasons why this isn't going to work. Reason number 1, the pigments that they use in crayons, they're non-soluble, so they're not going to mix with whatever type of wax you're using. As you can see, as it cooled, the color pigment from the crayon actually separated from our paraffin wax. You can definitely see where the color settled at the bottom. That's because it didn't mix with the wax. You can see the more we added, it grew just a little bit. But still, throughout the entire process, none of them really mixed. The ones with 12 crayons per pound, they got kind of an ombre effect, but still not a good mixture. It's not going to give you a good colored candle. The second reason we shouldn't use crayons is they're just not going to burn right. Because that color pigment doesn't mix well, it's actually going to come up through your wick and clog your wick. The way a candle works is as it burns, it melts that wax, and that's what kind of feeds that wick and keeps that flame going. If you've got a color pigment in there that didn't mix well, it's going to get stuck in that wick, clog it, and eventually your flame's going to go out. So let's go and light all these up. We're going to light all 12 of them. We're going to zoom in and let you see how they burn. Okay, so this is 1 crayon per pound, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 12. We're going to go ahead and light them up. I think at best, these first few might burn for 10-15 minutes. But after that, the wick's going to get clogged, the flame's going to die out, and it's going to be pretty much a worthless candle. We're just going to let these burn for a bit and see how they do. You can see the one right here, it's already starting to die out. The rest of them will shortly. You can see some of the flames starting to die down quite a bit. Won't be much longer, they'll be snuffed out. Okay, and as you can see, they've all gone out. What's basically happened here is as the candle burns, it needs to draw more wax up to fuel that wick. These color pigments don't mix well, so they actually clog the wick, which prevents more wax from being drawn up through the wick, causing it to eventually go out. So just for fun, I made one strictly out of crayons, just like the DIY channels tell you to do. I gotta admit, it turned out kind of pretty, but I already know it's not going to function. I also made one out of the same wax using a proper candle dye. So we're going to put the two side by side, show you just how differently they perform. That wasn't even a time lapse, that was actually real time. A boat of this size should burn for about 15 hours. That one probably less than a minute. As you can see, the proper candle still going strong. It'll grow strong like that for the entire 15 hours that this boat of candles meant to burn. And that's the reason that you shouldn't use crayons to color your candles. It's just not going to end up with a good color. It's not going to actually function like a proper candle. And if that weren't enough, the people that make these actually tell you not to. If you go to Crayola's website, their official statement is, Crayola candles have not been tested or evaluated for the candle making process, therefore should not be used to color candles. So it's going to be a lousy color, it's not going to work, and the people that make them tell you that you shouldn't use them. Now the people on these DIY channels, they don't really mean any harm. Honestly, they just don't know any better. They don't have a candle making background. They're just trying to put out content for their channel. But seriously, do yourself a favor, get yourself some proper candle dye, because if you use crayons, you're just wasting your time, you're wasting supplies, and most importantly, you're just wasting a lot of good crayons.